The death of your ambition is not a failure, but the first true sign of spiritual progress. You feel a heavy weight where your drive used to live, leaving you stranded in a desert of indifference while others chase shadows. This terrifying emptiness is the dissolution of the egoic engine described by the profound teachings of Jung. In the next few minutes, you will discover why losing your desire to conquer the world is the only way to find it. There is a specific, haunting quiet that arrives when the mechanisms of the personality begin to fail under the weight of a dawning consciousness. You might have spent decades fueled by the intense heat of competition, the burning need for validation, or the crushing fear of being ordinary, yet suddenly, the fire has gone out. This state often feels like a clinical depression or a catastrophic loss of purpose. But in the realm of deep mysticism, it is known as the Great Stillness. When the soul begins to stir, it withdraws its energy from the trivial games of the external world to prepare for an internal revolution that the mind cannot yet comprehend. You find yourself staring at your bank account, your career goals, and your social status with a sense of profound detachment, as if you are looking at the relics of a civilization you no longer inhabit. The activities that once provided you with a surge of adrenaline now feel like hollow rituals performed by a ghost. This is because the ego, which is the primary driver of worldly motivation, has reached the limit of its utility. According to the Jungian perspective, the first half of life is dedicated to building a strong container for the self, which involves establishing an identity and securing a place in society. However, when the transition into the second half of life begins, or when a spiritual awakening accelerates this process, the container must be broken so that the contents can expand. You are not losing your mind, you are losing your mask. This period of apathy is actually a protective mechanism of the universe, preventing you from continuing to build a life that no longer resonates with the frequency of your evolving heart. Imagine a traveler who has been walking for miles toward a mirage, only to realize the water is not there. The moment the realization hits, his legs lose the strength to continue. This is exactly what is happening to your motivation. The why behind your actions has been revealed as an illusion, and your spirit is refusing to expend any more energy on a lie. You are being called into a sacred waiting room where the old tools of hustle and willpower are confiscated at the door. In this space, the silence is loud, and the lack of direction is disorienting. But it is within this very void that the authentic self begins its first genuine movements toward a destiny that is written in the stars, rather than in a corporate ledger. When your internal world begins to shift, the very fabric of how you perceive progress undergoes a radical transformation that often leaves you feeling completely paralyzed. We have been conditioned to believe that life is a linear ascent, a constant climb toward a peak of achievement where the air is thin and the rewards are plenty. But spiritual awakening operates on an inverted horizon, where the path forward often looks like a step backward into the unknown. This creates a friction within the psyche that is almost unbearable because your biological brain is screaming for security while your spirit is demanding surrender. You try to force yourself back into the old rhythms of productivity, using the same affirmations and the same discipline that worked for years, but the gears simply will not catch. It is as if the universe has changed the locks on the doors of your previous life, and no matter how hard you push, the entrance remains barred. This friction is exacerbated by the observation of those around you who seem to be moving with such ease and certainty. You see people chasing wealth, fame, and influence with a ferocity that you once shared, and instead of feeling inspired, you feel a strange sense of pity mixed with exhaustion. You are witnessing the machinery of the world from the outside for the first time, and the sight is both revelatory and deeply unsettling. This is the moment where the seeker often falls into a trap of spiritual guilt, believing that their lack of motivation is a sign of spiritual stagnation rather than a symptom of growth. We assume that a high vibrational state should result in boundless energy and creative ecstasy, yet the reality is often much more sober. The light of consciousness first illuminates the debris of our false desires, and clearing that rubble requires a stillness that looks exactly like laziness to the uninitiated eye. You are in the process of recalibrating your entire energetic system to a different source of power, transitioning from the volatile fuel of the ego to the eternal current of the divine. To truly understand why your motivation has vanished, we must look into the alchemical process of the soul, which involves the total breakdown of the leaden ego into the golden essence of the spirit. In the teachings of Jung, this is referred to as the process of individuation, a journey where the person moves from being a mere fragment of societal conditioning to becoming a whole, integrated being. The reason your motivation dies is that your previous drive was largely a product of complexes, those invisible psychological knots that pull your strings from the shadows of the unconscious mind. You were motivated by a father's disapproval, a mother's expectation, or a childhood wound that told you that you were never enough. When the light of awakening begins to shine into these dark corners, the complexes lose their power. The wound begins to heal, and as it heals, the compensatory drive that was built upon it simply evaporates. This is why many people who undergo a deep spiritual shift find it impossible to return to their high-stress careers or their former social circles. The fuel for those activities was trauma, and once the trauma is processed, the activity becomes unsustainable. This transition marks the shift from personal will to universal will. Most of what we call motivation is actually a form of resistance. It is the ego trying to force the world to conform to its narrow desires. We set goals, we visualize outcomes, and we manipulate our environment to get what we think we need to feel safe. But as you awaken, you realize that the ego is not the pilot of the ship. It is merely a passenger who has been screaming directions at the captain. The loss of motivation is the ego finally getting tired and sitting down in the back of the boat. This allows the captain, the higher self, to finally take the helm. However, there is a significant lag time between the ego letting go and the higher self taking over. This gap is the neutral zone, a period of metaphysical weightlessness where you have no personal desires but have not yet received your divine instructions. It is a period of holy uselessness, where you are required to do nothing but exist. The Jungian concept of the shadow also plays a vital role here. Much of our motivation is tied to the rejection of our shadow. We run towards success because we are terrified of being perceived as failures or weak. As you integrate your shadow, you accept the parts of yourself that are unproductive, lazy, or unsuccessful. When you no longer fear being a failure, the frantic motivation to succeed for the sake of avoiding that label disappears. You become comfortable in your own skin, even if that skin is sitting on a couch doing absolutely nothing. This is not the end of your life. It is the end of your performance. You are retiring from the theater of the world, and the silence that follows the closing of the curtain can be deafening. What happens after this death of motivation is the emergence of inspiration, or inspiritation. Motivation is a push from behind, a constant pressure to move. Inspiration is a pull from the front, a magnetic attraction toward an action that feels effortless and joyful. When you move from inspiration, you no longer need to discipline yourself because the action itself is the reward. You are no longer working for a future result. You are participating in the present moment as an expression of divine play. This is the state that the ancient Taoists called Wu Wei, or effortless action. It is the way a river flows or a flower blooms. A rose does not have a motivation to grow. It grows because it is the nature of the rose to express its beauty. As you move through this spiritual winter, you are being prepared to bloom in a way that is natural to your soul, rather than forced by your mind. You must understand that the universe is not interested in your productivity. It is interested in your presence. We live in a culture that worships the doing, but awakening is a return to the being. The architecture of your life is being rebuilt from the foundation up. The old structure was built on the shifting sands of external validation, and it had to collapse. The new structure is being built on the solid rock of your eternal nature. This requires a period of total demolition where no new construction is allowed. If you try to build something new too quickly, you will only recreate the old prison with different colored walls. You must allow the site to remain empty for as long as the spirit requires. This emptiness is not a waste of time. It is a sacred space where the new blueprints are being drawn. In this deep mystical state, you begin to see that time itself is an illusion. The urgency that once drove you was based on the fear of death and the limited span of a human life. But when you realize that you are an eternal consciousness having a temporary human experience, the rush subsides. You have all of eternity to accomplish what needs to be done. This realization brings a profound sense of peace that is often mistaken for a lack of ambition. In reality, it is the highest form of ambition, the ambition to be fully awake in the present moment. You are no longer interested in leaving a legacy. You are interested in living a truth. This truth does not require a 5-year plan or a morning routine. It only requires your breath and your awareness. Eventually, a new type of movement will begin to stir within you. It will be subtle at first, a small curiosity, a gentle nudge to create something, or a sudden desire to help someone. Unlike the old motivation, this will not feel like a should. It will feel like a can't help but. You will find yourself engaged in activities that align with your highest purpose, and you will do them with a level of excellence and focus that your ego could never achieve. Because you are no longer worried about the outcome, you are free to give your absolute best to the process. You become a conduit for a higher intelligence, and the work you produce will have a quality of magic that people will sense without being able to explain. This is the stage of the co-creator, where your personal will and the divine will are in perfect alignment. You are no longer pushing the boulder up the hill. You have become the hill, the boulder, and the sky above them. The world will see you as being highly motivated, but you will know that you are simply being lived by the Spirit. This is the secret that the mystics have known for millennia. To truly gain your life, you must first be willing to lose it. The death of your motivation is simply the birth of your divinity in action. I know the exhaustion that currently resides in your bones, a weariness that sleep cannot touch, because it is not the body that is tired, but the person you have been pretending to be. You look around at the world and feel like a stranger in a familiar land, watching people run toward goals that now seem like children's toys left in the rain. There is a profound loneliness in this transition, a sense that you are speaking a language that no one else understands, and that your stillness is being judged as a defect by a society that only values the noise of progress. I want you to know that your fatigue is sacred and your apathy is a form of integrity. You are refusing to lie to yourself any longer, and that is the most courageous act a human being can perform. The guilt you feel for not doing enough is simply the final echo of the old world trying to pull you back into the hive. You are not broken, and you are not falling behind. You are being dismantled with surgical precision so that something far more beautiful can be assembled in your place. When you see your reflection in the mirror, try to look past the tired eyes and the mask of confusion to the steady light that is watching it all. That light is not worried about your career, your chores, or your reputation. It is simply enjoying the sensation of being alive, and it is waiting for you to join it in that simple, profound joy. You have permission to stop fighting the current. You have permission to be still. You have permission to let the old version of you die, so that the truth of who you are can finally take its first breath in the open air. The invitation before you is not to find a new way to be productive, but to discover a new way to exist. I challenge you to stop fighting the emptiness and instead walk directly into the center of it. Stop trying to fix your lack of motivation as if it were a broken machine, and instead treat it as a guest who has come to bring you a message from the beyond. For the next 7 days, allow yourself to be exactly as unproductive as you feel, without the burden of self-judgment or the pressure of a deadline. Listen to the silence of your soul and notice the subtle impulses that arise when the ego is not shouting. You are being asked to trade your horizontal ambition for vertical depth. This is a mystical surrender that requires you to trust that the universe can sustain you without your constant interference. Let the fire of your old desires burn out completely, for it is only in the ashes of the ego that the phoenix of the spirit can truly rise. The shift from the driven self to the guided soul is the final frontier of human evolution. You have spent your life building a monument to a name that was never truly yours, but now the stone is crumbling to reveal the light within. Do not fear the quiet, for the quiet is where the truth resides. You are moving from the effort of the wave to the power of the ocean. In the stillness, you will find that you have never been alone and that you have never been lacking. The journey does not end in achievement, but in the simple realization that you are already home. Trust the void, for it is the womb of your divinity.